I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, everyone, it is February 9, 2022. It's 12 p.m. So glad that you could join us today for another Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. As you can see on the screen, we are joined by Robert Dent of G2, and of course, well, let me give him a shout. And of course, Mark Boatwright-Frost, founder, executive director of Resilient in the Kitsap Resiliency Project, Roseco. How are both of you gentlemen doing today?
I'm doing good. Life is good. Can't complain too much. Business with G2 is going forward.
All right, I love it. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. And much like G2, business is booming, and that may not be a good thing. Because when we're really busy, it means that things are really bad.
That's actually a true statement.
That is a true statement.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how to get it better today.
Sounds like a plan for sure. So we did want to, you write quite a bit, Mark. And so there's a lot of information that you put out. You're very reflective and try to provide information to the community with your unique perspective on it. And so today we wanted to look at an article that you wrote. I'm going to go ahead and put the link here so people can follow if they would like. But those who show up, those who do not remember the past are destined to repeat it. We've heard that saying a lot, and that is by what, George? Santayana. Okay. Didn't know who said that, but you hear that a lot.
Yeah, 1950s Spanish philosopher and writer. And it's probably one of my favorite sayings. And I will cop to being a complete nerd in the fact that the first time I heard it was watching Babylon 5 when it first aired ages and ages ago.
Oh, come on now. We're all that kind of nerd. All of us watch some bit of Babylon 5, I would think.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and ever since then, and this has got to be about 15 years ago now, I have been quoting George Santayana because it's absolutely true. If we do not remember the past, we are destined to repeat it, and we have done so a lot. But we've talked about that. We'll be talking about that again. And one of the reasons we repeat it is because the future is decided by those who show up. Fair statement?
That is a very fair statement.
So if the people who like the system the way they are show up, they're the ones coding our culture. They're the ones programming it for the rest of us. I had a good friend who used this statement a lot, and I tend to agree with it. I'd like to introduce one more saying here, and I'll probably say a lot more before we're done. But every decision is a choice. Whether it's passive or active, it is a choice you're making. If you don't think you're making a decision, you're making a decision. And often you're allowing somebody else to make that decision for you. How does that play into who shows up? If you're making a passive decision not to act on something or not to think about something, someone else will make an active decision, and that decision will be made, and that's the life you get to lead. So the argument here, or the discussion here, is around, and it's not really an argument, the discussion here is that we need to make more active decisions about showing up in our own lives. We need to make more active decisions to show up in decisions that are made about our communities, in how we are in our communities. And that's really what the article's about. I actually softened, since you probably read the first one, I went back and edited it and softened a piece of it because one of my readers beat me over the head about it. And I agree. And how it got.
No, where did you soften it?
Okay, so down toward the middle, I said, listen, you didn't make this, so don't feel guilty about it. And it was kind of hardcore about it. But the truth is, we are living in a life that we had no decision in. This has been around for thousands of years. The culture that's brought us to where we are has been around for thousands of years. In order to change it, we need to come together. But beating someone up or beating yourself up for not paying attention or not knowing or not having done something about it is pointless. It really is pointless because we live in it. We're responsible to fix it, but we didn't create it. And figuring out that there's a problem is actually kind of monumental in our culture, if that makes sense.
That's kind of a sad statement, but I follow you.
Yeah.
You know, I was having a conversation with Terry earlier today about misinformation and about the fact that corporations, and this is not conspiracy theory, this is just a fact. Corporations like Monsanto and other of their ilk or large corporations that do negative things pay thousands of people to go on the internet and put out fluff pieces. So finding any real news about them a month after it's gone out is virtually impossible. So how is it? And when I say it's monumental to figure out things, you have to catch it when the news is fresh. You have to put the dots together with all this other noise hitting you constantly. So how is it possible to show up when all of this is going on? Well, find resources, find people like Marwan and Rob, myself, Terry, and the other people who work with us, Tom Martin, and start the conversation. Work with us, and we'll talk to you about how we can change this without having a revolution, without overthrowing anything, but by just changing our own minds and working together and deciding that it's going to be different. What if we could change the entire world by getting to know our neighbors?
Can you elaborate on that? Like, how would we change the world by doing that?
Well, how many neighbors do you know now? I mean, we've had this conversation before, Marwan. You grew up not learning not to talk to your neighbors.
Absolutely.
That's exactly how I grew up.
Yeah, and so I knew most of my neighbors when I was a kid. I knew most of them. I walked around the neighborhood. I grew up in San Bernardino, California, and I literally walked to the store and bought cigarettes for my father when I was like 7 or 8 or 9 years old. So, and I got milk, and then it was like half a mile away. Everybody knew everybody. I couldn't go anywhere without somebody knowing I was where I was and making a comment about it. These days, we all live in shells inside of our shells, inside of our shells of cars and shells of houses, shells of offices. We don't talk to anybody. And I guess because of the way I grew up, I do. My sister used to get incredibly annoyed with me when we would go someplace like Disneyland. And I don't mean to say that lightly. I grew up through my teenage years within 10 miles of Disneyland. So going to Disneyland as a local was a thing we did a lot because it was available to us. And as a local, it was a lot cheaper. And back then it was way cheaper. And it would be, you'd go there a whole lot. And then I worked there for a while. But my sister would get really annoyed with me because I'd stand in line and talk to people from everywhere and just chat with them. And she'd go, "What are you doing? Talking to people. We're standing in a line for an hour. What are you going to do? Stare ahead? I'm not going to talk to you."
You did this as a kid or as an adult?
I did this all through my teen years as an adult. I just stop and chat to people. I've never had anybody have a negative reaction to just chatting about them and wanting to know who they were. So how does this change the world? Well, it sets a different mindset. If you go to your neighbors and we have a block, let's say you have a block party and you get to know your neighbors and they get interested in what you're doing. You talk to them about, we do better together, and not a lecture or anything, but just kind of get them in the conversation. And over time, you build a relationship with them and you talk about how you can map your neighborhood or network. I like to call it network your neighborhood, and build relationships. When you start having relationships, magical things happen. This word synergy comes in place. And suddenly you've got more people adding more ideas. And that starts to change the way people think. It's a slow process. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's going to happen in a decade. But to change a process that had been in place for thousands of years, it's going to take generations. And we can make improvements early on, but we really have to look at this as planting a tree that our children or grandchildren will sit under.
Mark, I wanted to ask you a question in regards to, getting to know your neighbors. And,
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we were kind of taught and raised the way that we were was, we're very private, right? You don't have outsiders in your personal business. And there were times when we were latchkey kids. So of course it's, you don't want the neighbors coming over. You want to keep the kids safe. Like you don't answer the door for anyone, things like that. Right. So all those are kind of natural things. But to what extent do you get to know the neighbor? I mean, is it to the point where they're coming over for dinner? Are we, having the Super Bowl together? And I'm kind of an introverted person. So after my day of serving the community and doing all the things, the last thing I want is to be getting a knock on my door from my neighbor saying, hey, let's have dinner, let's do this, let's do that. So what's that?
That's kind of entirely up to you. But I'm also an introvert. I mean, it doesn't look like it. Most people don't think I am, but being in crowds drains me and I get tired with it. But I also enjoy breaking bread with people. I enjoy the conversation. And to some degree, that energizes me. I love cooking burgers for other people, and I love cooking for people, period. Last night, Terry's daughter came over, and I made dinner for everybody. And it's something that I love to do. That does energize me, and I like talking to people and listening to what they have to say. How far you want to go with that, and it depends on you, and it depends on your neighbor. But I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to invite people over to have a game night or have a conversation or to watch the Super Bowl. I mean, you don't have to have it all the time. You can certainly control how much time you give to it. But if crisis comes, wouldn't it be nice if you had a relationship and the guy who could fix your generator would come over and grab his wrenches and get it up and running? The guy who knows how to make clean water and has the filtering system got water for you guys to drink while things were settling out. Somebody has people that if during a crisis you're hurt, wouldn't it be nice if somebody in your neighborhood is medical training was able to help you?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I want to hear from Rob. Like, Rob, what do you think
Yeah.
would be a comfortable level for you to engage with your neighbors to where you still have that kind of privacy when you want it, but if something happens, as Mark says, you can knock on the door, they're knocking on your door, and you're ready to synergize and help each other?
Yeah. First, let me amend what I had first said. I had first said that I grew up the same way, not knowing my neighbors. And that really is a false statement because, I mean, as a child, my parents, I grew up in a small town. And like you were saying, Mark, everybody knew everybody. So everybody knew everybody's business. Everybody just knew it all. That, to me, when I became an adult, had burned me out where I did not want everybody in my business. Okay? So I moved to the West Coast. I don't want to talk to my neighbors. I had joined the military. Guess what? I'm not going to talk to my neighbors. So you get to where we are now, Marwan. So we founded G2. We're doing things. I live in a neighborhood where I have gotten to know all of my neighbors. Okay. The good, the bad, the ugly. Okay. Some of them I want to engage with. Some of them it's just passing on the sidewalk and say, hey, how's your day going? And, it really is a mix of how that works. But I can say to knowing your neighbors, recently, going down to Texas, being down there with my mom and seeing the support network she has. My mom still has that mentality they had when we lived in the small town outside of Detroit. So she knows all her neighbors. Okay. So my dad, was on oxygen and stuff before he died. They had problems. They've got a neighbor that brings over a generator because they have that connection with them. There's flooding and stuff. And my mom goes, well, I've got all these canned goods stored up. So some of them don't have food because there's a hurricane. So my mom's got that. And they have that kind of synergy in their little neighborhood there.
She live in Houston?
Yeah, she lives in Friendswood, just outside of Houston.
Okay. The disasters you're citing,
Yeah.
I have friends in Houston, so it sounded awfully familiar.
So it really is just a mix of, one, how's your personality get along? Do you want to talk with these people? You know, I mean, and it really is, okay, I can see what your situation is. We can talk about the neighborhood, or we can talk about how it, the climate, the political climate, or the homeless problem, or 900 things. But somewhere in there, there's a connection where you can go knock on that door, or they can come knock on your door. So I don't know if that answers what you were thinking, but
Well, I think it's what Mark was saying, right? It's going to be different for each person, and so hearing other perspectives helps me to, kind of form how I can go forward and kind of leverage that and keep my sovereignty, but at the same time also build community simultaneously, right? So I think it's a fine line, for the neighbors that I do know, they do knock on my door, whether it's toilet paper or, hey, they have my Wi-Fi access. And so I'm able to share that. It's like, hey, the Wi-Fi is down. It's like, I know I'm working on it, or they bring us clients or say, hey, this person over here needs rental assistance, or this person needs a hot meal. And so we have that, the neighbor down the street. So there are a few that I know. And actually, the older gentleman couple right across the street from me, I mean, they're in their late, probably 70s, easy, retired military, comes knocking on my door one day. And I thought he was a landlord, right? So I'm like, hey, how you doing? And we end up talking. He comes in, he sits down for like 45 minutes. And it wasn't until he mentioned something about his truck, I realized he was a neighbor from across the street. And he just wandered over I don't know who you are. You've been living here for 3 years. I just wanted to come talk to you. And we just sat and talked. And, we were moving some furniture, about 2 months ago in the rain, and he came out and tried to help. And so, that's kind of how those things are built. So it's pretty cool. So, I don't always speak to him when I see him, but I know that he would be willing to help in a second, and we can go and do that. And I also know, Mark, what his aptitude is, right? He's got a lot of skills in house building and repairs because he owns properties. Mm-hmm. So I know that's someone that can
handy to have if, like, you have damage to your roof or something.
Yeah, even if he can't physically do that, he can direct younger, healthier people on how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that it is really powerful and helpful. So I'm glad that he reached out in that way. And I am looking forward to having the neighborhood party here and getting to know more of the neighbors. I knocked on my neighbor's door 2 days ago. We live in a metered parking area. And lo and behold, who is it? U Park, M Park, whatever. I hate them. I should have a bad button, but I don't have a bad button.
Boo.
They gave my neighbor a ticket. I knocked on the door. They didn't even come to the door, and so we don't speak. They don't speak to me. I don't speak to them. And, it's unfortunate. I mean, a head nod or, would be nice. So it just is what it is. But I am going to actively go to work on changing that.
Well, and just to speak to that, I mean, when I first moved in here, I lived here for 6 months. And it took me 6 months of living here to literally run into my neighbor that lives on the other side of the wall at the college for us to strike up a conversation.
So you share a wall, but you're 15 miles away in another city, and that's where you meet.
Yeah, and that's where we have a conversation and talk to each other and become friends.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So just to bring this back to showing up, would you say that your neighbor across the street showed up?
Yeah, absolutely you did.
So our job is to show up for others and help them learn to show up for themselves. That's really what this is about. But getting people to pay attention and to realize the value to showing up, that's a hard thing. It's, we are indoctrinated into staying in our shells. Staying in my shell and driving to work, staying in my shell in the office, staying in my shell at home.
Well, and that's I would ask you. I mean, the $64,000 question is, how do you get these people to engage? How do you get them to show up
I'll let you
when
know.
most of them look at the most of them look at this and go, "Hey, you know what? This ain't my problem. I didn't start this. I didn't do this. My parents started this. Maybe my grandparents started this, but this isn't my thing. I just want to stay in my bubble and be alone." So
Yeah. How do you do it without scaring the hell out of them? That's the part that I'm working on, is finding that balance. Because, I mean, we could do one of these for a 2-hour session, and I can show the movie Shockwave, which is going to talk about a 9 magnitude quake and tsunami that follows it, that's going to scare the hell out of everybody. Then it becomes your problem, unless you're planning to move to the East Coast or, someplace else. But the thing is, how to get them to understand that this is their problem now. And it's interesting. I'm actually in a pretty good mood, considering the last 4 days I've been working on web pages that I need for the new web launch that we've been working on. And I've been focused on water, power, and food so far. Shelters next. And the way I've structured it is, I talk about, because I'm talking, this is for the Internet for All, the Innovation for All project, which is we're inviting people to help join us solving problems. So I have to describe the problem pretty thoroughly. And then I've spent a day on each page finding news articles, reliable news articles from reliable sources, science articles, and such, that talk about the problems. So for 3 to 4 days now, I have been reading article after article over the crisis that we're in the middle of. And I'm thinking, all I want to do when somebody says it's not my problem is slap them and say, yeah, it is. You didn't create it, but it's going to kill you if you don't wake up and do something about it. And I can't do that, obviously, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to do that, because it's like,
that
it's
doesn't
not.
give you a lot of followers. You may feel better about it, but it will not get you anybody to help.
I absolutely get that. And I try and invite people to it. And we are growing. We are growing. Every day it's growing. When we talk, we're going to be talking to the Lions Club. And they're already reaching out to the other Lions Club so we can do more Lions Clubs. I've gotten an email asking how they connect, the membership people talking about how they connect with other Lions Clubs to get us out there. They feel it's so important about the message we're going to deliver, that they want to already get it out further, and they haven't even heard us talk yet.
Nice.
And we have the Innovation for All. I just watched a YouTube video, and I don't know if, Rob, how far you're into what we're doing, but I just watched a YouTube video today by a gentleman named Mark Roper. He's a NASA engineer, and he's most famous for building glitter bombs. And what those are they're boxes that look like, expensive deliveries for iPods and stuff like that porch thieves steal. And what he has is a machine inside of it that basically has 4 phones, so everything's being recorded, a GPS to show where the box travels. It has, when they open it, a glitter bomb goes off and throws glitter everywhere. And then they have skunk spray that sprays out.
Oh, wow.
They're thorough.
Very thorough. He's got 4 generations of this, and he shows videos about this. He works with police forces all over the country, small town police forces, and to help deal with this. He's also gotten involved in doing similar things for human trafficking, for other things that are huge problems. But today's video was interesting because he always does it in really tongue-in-cheek sort of way, but basically taking a bottle and going to a swamp, and this particular swamp had a dead possum in it, and taking the water out of the swamp and taking this powder that he had from a package and put it into the bottle, shake it up for 5 minutes, and the water and the mud and debris separate, leaving clear drinkable water at the top.
Really?
Well, that's kind of cool.
I've never heard of this product. He explains it is from Procter & Gamble. They sell it at a loss overseas to people who don't have drinking water. What it does is it has a compound that basically pulls all the mud and makes it into a larger compound, so it becomes denser. It has a polymer fiber kind of thing that surrounds us, and all of that sinks to the bottom.
Mm.
And then it has a chlorine base that takes care of most of the pathogens, bacteria, and viruses. So the water in the top is drinkable. Now, of course, were I doing it, I would siphon the water on the top off and run it to a secondary filter just because I'm me. But
maybe squirt some Mio in there.
huh?
Maybe squirt some Mio in there or some kind of flavoring. That just sounds pretty nasty.
But anyway, but it, you know, if
awesome.
okay, so let's talk about. I'm not to get depressing, but let's talk about Cascadia Rising for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
9 magnitude quake, followed by a tsunami that's pretty much going to wipe out most of the wastewater treatment in Kitsap County is on the waterfront.
Mm.
So it's gone, it's done. So, and not to put too fine a point on it, but it's going to be pretty shitty. Water delivery. How many pipes are going to be left delivering water to your pipe? You imagine 266,000 people going to their tap and no water comes out. If you don't have water stored up and back, and okay, we have 20 gallons worth of water stored here.
Mm-hmm.
That goes really fast with two people if we don't get to help for several months. So it might come to the point where we're taking less than stellar water and trying to make it drinkable.
Yeah, I got a collapsible rain barrel in December. So that will give me another, I think, 50 gallons. And currently I have 20, but I've been distributing them out to Layla's mom and grandmother. So I do want to build up that supply. I think it would be, obviously you're saying a few months if this takes place. But I'm thinking, okay, if I can just build slowly and, people ask me all the time, it's like, well, you're saying several months. It's like, well, how do I do all this? It's like, well, just start a little bit at a time. Shout out to Sabrina. She was saying that because we're gonna eat some of the emergency ration meals on a podcast, so we can say, okay, if you end up eating these things, what tastes good and what doesn't, right? So people can make an informed decision. But some of them can be purchased with EBT, with SNAP benefits, and so maybe that's what you do is you purchase some every now and then, or you forego that big special dinner that you were going to do, or going out to eat at Olive Garden or Red Lobster and say, hey, we're going to invest in ourselves and we're going to buy these, emergency meals. And, through watching folks that taste it, you can kind of see which ones are good, maybe buy them individually to see what's good. They last 20, 25 years and you're good to go. And if you want to use them, you can cycle them through, because folks that go camping and hiking, that's what they're going to take anyway. So, you don't have to keep them until it's an emergency, but do try it.
Understand those are, if you're talking about MREs, those are incredibly calorically dense. So you're looking at probably 3,000 to 6,000 calories in a package. So just understand that when you're going to eat them, they are calorically dense. So be a little.
That's a snack.
Huh?
But we're Americans. That's a snack.
Literally.
Okay. Not to be the prepper expert here or anything, but I look for specials at Grocery Outlet. They have Luna bars and Cliff bars that they always have like on release, so you can get like a box of bars for a fraction of the cost that it would cost you normally. And then I can just put those aside for later. They last for a long time, and those are great energy when you need it.
Yeah, and that's what people need to hear is, how do you get started? I started off with just getting, the 5 gallon. Well, first I started with the case of water, but I found myself continuously drinking the cases of water because it's so convenient. So I was like, all right, the 5 gallon jug. I'm not going to break that thing open and it will sit there. And so that helped me to start to build the stockpile.
With the standard disclaimer that I am not sponsored by or repping any particular product. I am a big fan because of just knowing people that use it for the Berkey filter. And I'm actually considering buying one of those in the fairly near future, they go from 1.5 to 5 gallons. They're very expensive, but they're the best water filtration device. You put one on your counter and you just run water through it. You always have water.
Really?
Yeah, I'm looking at the 3.5 gallon one. It comes with two what they call their black filters. Literally the finest water filter in the world. And you can get up to $6,000 gallons without replacing it.
What does that run on average?
$140 for two, I think, is what the price was.
Oh, okay. Well, when you said it's really expensive and then it's all relative, I thought you were going to say a few grand.
No, the whole thing, you can get the whole thing with backup filters for less than $1,000. And it's stainless steel, so it's going to stick around for a long time. And if you have less than potable water, you want something like that in there. Okay. So just a thought. I mean, having backup water is fine, but it's only going to last you so long. Rain barrels are a really good idea, but you want to have a filtration device as well.
Okay.
So, it's because rainwater isn't just clean coming off the roof.
Right.
So you need to think about, you're going to have to filter it out. You're going to have to, filter any petrochemicals that are in there out, any airborne things. So, understand rainwater is fine for watering the lawn and stuff, but if you're going to be drinking it, you need to run it through a secondary filter.
Now, I did give out life straws to everyone at G2 for Christmas, so they could at least have that.
Yes.
Right. Really good thing to get, and I will tell you that Bimart has the best price on it, is a Sawyer water filter. The Sawyer water filters are about 4 inches long. Let's see, where am I at here? Okay, 4 inches long or so. And you screw them onto a plastic bottle, so you get, questionable water with one bottle. You have a clean bottle, you screw it on it, pour it through. It does 100,000 gallons. It's used by the U.S. military. You can drive a car over it. It won't break. And if it gets nasty, you can back flush it and clean it out. So I was told by a ex-special forces guy about it. And I have one. Terry's got one. I recommend them to everybody. They're about $20 at Bimart. If you buy them from Amazon, it's about $22.
Okay.
So, again, not sponsored by them, but they're just good, solid, reliable equipment.
Yeah, people need to hear what works. Yeah. We're so tremendously busy, and it's like, hey, this is the first I've heard of Cascadia Rising, and then you're saying to get all these things to be prepared, and it's like, well, how do I start? What do I do? So having hey, this works good. I heard this is quality. I've used this myself. It's a good starting point.
I recommend everybody have a Leatherman.
Now, what is that?
A Leatherman?
Mm-hmm.
A Leatherman is a knife tool wrench. It's got a pair of pliers. It's got a knife. It's got it basically, again, it's about 4 inches long, depending on which one is. It's solid steel, high quality. You can cut wire with it. You can saw with it. It's just a multi-tool, a multi-tool. There are lots of them out there. Gerber makes one. I use a Leatherman. I've had a Leatherman for 20 years.
Is it what MacGyver uses?
No, MacGyver uses a Swiss Army knife.
Oh, yeah, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but yeah, I'm sure Rob's got one.
Yeah, a Leatherman is much more rugged than a Swiss Army knife.
Got you. Okay.
So yeah, I suggest in your bag in your car, you should have a Leatherman. You should have some spare water. You should have the ability to filter water. You should have rope. You should have an emergency blanket. You should have a flashlight. You should check these things regularly. You should have a few snack bars. I mean, you don't have to get elaborate. You can do the whole thing for less than $20. Gotcha. Well, Leatherman's going to cost you about $25, $30 if you get a good one. But you can get a cheap multi-tool somewhere, but I don't trust them, the cheap ones, because they tend to break.
Mm-hmm.
And then would it be your advice, gentlemen, to not put the batteries in the flashlight?
I just rotate them out. I have 5 or 6 flashlights around at any given time, and I rotate them out.
Okay.
Yep.
So that they're always, I check them periodically. I know it seems like a lot of maintenance, but it's really not.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we all have smartphones now, so you can set an alert to say, "Hey, every 3 months, rotate the flashlights." Okay, time to check them.
Yeah. And you take out your snack bars, rotate the flashlights, and just make sure any of the perishable stuff is looked at. Maybe drink the water, put new water in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about maintenance. But I mean, now we're kind of away from showing up. It's more the preparation. But what you really need to do is show up and have these conversations. Again, I'll go back to the puzzle analogy. Oh, by the way, I wanted to talk about the webpage for a moment more. The section where there's the news articles that I've been reading that have reminded me about how depressing everything can be.
Mm-hmm.
The title of it is called Dominoes and Dots. Can either tell me why I would do that?
Why it would be dominoes and dots?
Yeah.
Thinking of it from the standpoint of the dots are the little things that happen, and as they kind of stack up and that first domino falls, then all the rest fall.
Yeah, it's about the dominoes already falling, which is what all the news articles are about.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting the dots, because all of us tend to think of these as individual instances as opposed to connected instances.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to start seeing things as a connected thing across the board. So we need to connect the dots. So dominoes and dots, as we've talked before, we talk about puzzle pieces. Showing up is bringing your puzzle piece, even if you don't know what it is. And Pastor Ellington were here, I'd be saying, we need to talk about faith right now, Pastor. We need to have faith that we have a puzzle piece to bring to the table, even if we don't know what it is, because we do. It could be anything. It could be asking the right question at the right time that nobody else would ask because you see something differently.
That's just what was in my mind, as I'm asking you these questions right now. That's my puzzle piece, right? There's asking the questions. It's like being in the classroom. You ask a question and there's 8 other people in the class that are so glad that you asked it because they didn't want to feel stupid or I should already know that. And they're so relieved that's been asked. And so that right now is my puzzle piece, is bringing the questions to the forefront that get people to think and start to ping their ideas. And then you mention, hey, this product or that product, and I say, hey, this is what I do, and hey, you can use EBT to buy some of your emergency food preps and where to go, the everyday places. You don't have to go to Amazon and look for sales and things like that. So that's my puzzle piece in this moment.
Yeah, and also to do the little pitch for thinking local or thinking mutually supportive. Grocery outlet are locally owned by local people. They are a big chain, but they are all locally owned. Winco is employee owned. Bimart is employee owned. These are the things I look for in doing things. If you go to our website, you'll see champions. These are small local businesses that I go to because they have excellent support, great products, and they support the community. And there are some small businesses, I will agree, that have incredibly high prices and no service. There are a lot of small businesses, local businesses that they sell financial reporting and everything else, and I'm sure people need that, but I would prefer to support somebody who's like a local grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if you go down there, Marwan, toward the bottom, you'll see a little slideshow. Okay, there it is right there. So Colello's, who at the moment is closed, they will be open again, I think, next month. In March, they usually open up again. They close in the early part of the season. They do local produce. Their people are phenomenal, very helpful, best produce in town or in the area as far as I'm concerned. I will drive all the way out to Port Orchard to buy produce from these guys because I've never been disappointed.
Wow.
If you click on the one next to it in the little slide down at the bottom, the little pictures, right there, Rosanna's Asian Market. It's on between Silver Pine and Central Valley, off of Fairgrounds. Really nice people. I buy a lot of my produce there. I buy almost all of my ginger there. Went there 2 days ago to buy rice. By the way, in case you guys haven't noticed, I don't know how often you buy rice. I know, Marwan, you don't do a lot of shopping, but rice has essentially more than doubled in the last 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to buy my standard 20-pound bag of rice, and it was $34.
Wow.
Yep.
It was insanely high.
Even the cat is like surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the cats are surprised.
So I go to Rosanna's. The people there are super nice, locally owned. Their produce, for those who want to do Asian cooking and need the Asian produce, they buy fresh produce and bring it in on Tuesdays. They always have produce, but it's fresh on Tuesdays. Great people. Next one over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Helmets Auto Repair. I take my car there. I took it there before I bought a German car. They prefer working on German cars, but Steve is honest, fair pricing, does what he says he's going to do. It just community focused, great people. I highly recommend going to them. If he can't do it, he will send you to somebody equally reliable.
Oh, nice.
So next is Carter's. This is a little bakery coffee place on Bay Street in Port Orchard. Marwan, I'm going to let you talk about them because you've been there.
Well, I mean, I could just say it with the phrase "chocolate covered bacon." I mean, what else do you need?
You really don't have to go more than that. That covers it right there.
No, their pastries are phenomenal. Their quiche is really good. Their soups, their sandwiches. We would meet there, and it's a dangerous place to meet, but it is excellent. Very, very much top quality. So I will treat the office to Carter's from time to time. Probably do it again.
I was going to say, I have a reliable source that says the Marionberry cheesecake is to die for.
Yep. And I think that personally, I think they have the best coffee and of any place that I go. And I don't mean to piss any of the local coffee people off, but I love Carter's coffee. And the one thing I need to say about them is habanero chocolate ice cream.
I will take your word on it, but I'm pretty sure I know a few people that'll try it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's fabulous. So, and then next, I believe, is Black Ring, whose picture you saw up top is Tom and Heather Martin. They are a craft distillery. They make bourbons and vodkas and brandies, and they are fabulous. But more importantly, they support the community. We hold our second Wednesday meetings there every month. They are just good people. And Marwan disappeared, so can we go to the Slippery Pig?
I'm having trouble with it.
Okay, well, we'll just talk about the rest of them.
Oh, no, you're good. I just wanted to go and then just kind of give them a shout out. So this is a bottle from the Black Ring. So I went to go.
Yeah.
That's Toasted Joe.
Oh, yeah. This is delicious. This is a coffee whiskey. Yeah, this is delicious. Phenomenal. And they are great people.
Yep, they are. So Slippery Pig. I'll just start off with Sundays they hold beer church.
Okay.
And I've been invited to go talk to them. I haven't had time to do it yet. We actually showed Shockwave there. Dave is very committed to the community. They do their own distilled, I guess, ciders. They have a pineapple cider to die for. And on Beer Church, they hold a Beer Church is a little different. They talk about national events and community events and how to engage and they talk about it. They get a presentation. They talk about it. They dissect it. They analyze it, and they look at it from all angles. It's really very cool. Next, I don't remember what that one is. Oh, cookies. Yeah, I buy all my pet food here. The Cookies Pet Corner, very community focused, very knowledgeable. If you have pets, I recommend you go to them. They are. I've never had a bad experience at Cookies. I don't like the national stores because you go in there and you get what you get. Cookies will talk to you about different things and help you make decisions with real information. Next, I think is Cosmos. And I have a soft spot in my heart for Cosmos.
Huh? Audible gasp out of Rob's house. So on that one.
Yeah, Cosmos has some good foods. I mean, we go there, we get sandwiches. We go there, we get pasta. I've got nothing bad to say about them. I have never had a bad meal out of there.
And the service is fabulous.
Yes.
And there's a rumor that they might start carrying Black Ring.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
So, and I, as you know, as you gentlemen know, and the audience probably doesn't, that I'm allergic to wheat and corn. I can actually get a meal at Cosmos.
Oh,
so
awesome.
They have a very, very warm place in my heart. And last but not least on there is the Kitsap Food Co-op, which you guys have a fondness in your heart because they're next door to your offices.
Yeah, well, they're actually below us. So where the sign is actually our office.
Yep.
That's right.
And they're good people. We have started discussions with them about getting involved in the Food for All project.
Nice.
So I'm going to be pushing to get a meeting with their board and talk about what that might look like.
Okay.
So we talk about community champions, people who show up. These people show up every day. They're for the community every day. They provide service every day.
Oh, that's really cool. And I learned about a few organizations that as I open up Cameron's Kitchen, and Mark, you come over to cook, and other folks come over to cook, and I need to get some fresh produce and I get educated, I know where to go.
Absolutely. By the way, last night's dinner, I had wild Alaskan cod that I marinated in ginger, lime juice, and soy sauce for about 4 hours. And it was like ceviche. It was already pretty cooked from the lime juice. And then I popped it into a cast iron pan with the juice, let it finish out cooking, skin side down. And then when I served it, I brushed it with plum sauce.
That sounds pretty delicious.
It does.
And intricate.
He's not here. Well, he's actually.
So I just thought it needed something sparkly. And so I used a standard plum sauce and brushed it with it just to give it that little bit of extra zing at the end. And I also went back to an old book. I hadn't made this in forever. There's a Japanese sesame mayonnaise dressing that I use for the broccoli that I served with it, the blanched broccoli I served with it.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
So when Cameron
Really good.
opens up, I'll have a few surprises. And I really love Indian flavors. I really like Japanese flavors and Asian flavors. So I do a lot of fusion cooking.
I'm looking forward to it. And I want to get more into cooking. One, you save money, you eat healthier. Once you retrain your palate, food tastes so much better. I was vegetarian for a little bit. I don't know if I was vegetarian or vegan. That was something about 1.5 years ago, and it was great. I felt better.
You were vegan.
I was vegan.
Yes.
That's a hard road to go.
That is a hard road to go.
Oh, cashew cheese, and I went hardcore. It actually wasn't bad. It was pretty good. But then, I was starting to see or read about some of the bad parts of soy, and so that kind of got me away from it a bit. So
then your friend came over eating bacon cheeseburgers.
Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah, I know. I was the downfall. I'll take the blame.
Yeah. What did I have for breakfast? Bacon.
Well,
What did I have for breakfast this morning? I made fried potatoes, covered them with scrambled eggs with green onions, basil and cilantro, stuck it in the oven with some sharp cheddar cheese on it, brought it out, sliced it up, and we ate wedges of egg and potato.
Wow.
That is a much better breakfast than me. I had leftover ribs and some coffee.
Champions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's almost up there with cold pizza and hot coffee.
Well, there you go. You know.
Done that a few times in my life.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I've been cooking since I was 5. I've catered events. I love to cook. So when we go back to the neighborhood discussion, for me, it's all about the food. It's about breaking bread. And we've talked about how that is the open door for building a relationship. Always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this spring and fall for sure. So Mark, as we kind of bring this episode to a close, what do you want to leave us with to put on our mind?
So passive or active, a choice is a choice, a decision is a decision. To use an overused cliche to some degree, if you don't vote, you gave up your right to complain about the politician. If you don't show up and it hits the fan, the consequences are the consequences. You need to show up, and showing up before there's a problem is far better than showing up after there's a problem, and you have a lot more choices and a lot more resources to deal with it.
Rob, you have final thoughts?
That the only way to change this is to get together and do what needs to be done, to show up, to support each other, and to help each other. And if you can do it one person at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one community at a time, it will eventually change. It just takes time.
And understand a real time frame. It's not going to happen overnight. We can't fix it in a half an hour. It's got to take time. And you've got to continue to be patient. You got to continue to work. You got to put one foot in front of the other.
You know, I'll build off of what Rob was saying, and what both of you are saying. You know, when I was teaching at the college, you know, when I first started, I was just an advisor, and then I began to teach after a year, and then after that, you know, I began to create my own curriculum. After that, I started my own programs. And then from there, you know, I started a nonprofit. And so that is kind of the evolution of doing this work, right? And so I can look in hindsight now, we turned 4 on the 8th. So in just about a week. And, you know, there's 4 years behind us now when it's just an idea, just a desire of, you know, these people are in need in these ways, you know, through, you know, food insecurity or transportation, or just feeling like they need a place where they fit in, hence gather together, grow together, to, you know, taking an idea and making it a real thing, and seeing if you're going to make it the first 6 months or a year, to, hey, all right, it's year 2. Oh, holy crap. What's a pandemic? You know, what's a pandemic? Do we even survive this? To now, you know, having resiliency through that, and continuing to grow and thrive and be able to serve the community. And so for me, I'm a big proponent of SMART goals. And if you don't know what those are, it's just a way to set a goal and track. One, make it's specific, it's measurable, it's something that you can obtain, it's realistic, and there's a time that is set to it, right? So oftentimes we set these goals and we don't know if we're on the right path, if we need to adjust it, do something different, you know, step on the gas a little bit more, or what we need to do. And so for me, in regard to this, me bringing my puzzle piece, me getting to know the neighbors, I'm looking forward to, you know, having the neighborhood potluck and being intentional on getting to know the neighbors and being able to cultivate those relationships in a space that I can still feel comfortable. And, I can even share that with them. Say, hey, look, I want to build relationship with you, but I'm also a very private person that needs to recharge. If you need me, maybe text me. Don't just knock on my door. So there's ways that I can do that where I can still protect myself, but still kind of take it upon myself to build that community. And it's all about problem solving. And I'm a big proponent of solving problems, and then also kind of, building that scaffolding, and then, modeling, what works so that other people can take it and modify it and then duplicate it and maybe hopefully do it better, but do it in a way that works for them. So I'm really excited about that, and being able to track that, but then more importantly, share those successes out and share those stories out so it can empower others to do the same thing.
Excellent. I agree. And you do have to set your boundaries. You do have to set your boundaries and protect yourself. But that shouldn't prevent you from getting to know your neighbors.
Well, you know what? I could say, through, meeting and collaborating together and bringing our pieces together, you've got me meeting my neighbors. So it's not your fault, Mark.
That's it. You're now the downfall.
Yeah, well, I've been called a catalyst before, and a troublemaker far more often than that.
That's a polite word for it, Mark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of worse things to be called, for sure.
Yep.
I've been called several of them, but yeah.
All right, so I'll leave you with the quick final word there, Mark.
Well, all I got to say is there's no way out of this except together.
Absolutely. I love it. I think that's a great way to finish. So for Mark Boatwright-Frost, Rob Dent, and Marwan Cameron, this is The Conduit, Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. We will see you next Wednesday at 12 p.m. All right, everyone. Have a good week.